Helen.
सर 2 मिनट में शुरू करते हैं सर थोड़ा
So we are live right now. We can start.
Hi, good morning all. I am Amit Amres. Welcome everyone on behalf of Fitsio. Fitsio is a healthcare platform dedicated to providing the best possible care for people and athletes and also aids students to seek better knowledge of our field. Founded by Dr. Shwetank Pathak and Dr. Anuj Gupta and me as a co-founder of Fitsio. Thank you for joining for today's webinar. Today we are conducting a webinar on Maitland concept of manual therapy presented by very well-known person in physiotherapy, Dr. P.P. Mansur, and very special guest from Odisha. He is head of Department of Physiotherapy of Swami Vivekananda National Institute of Rehabilitation, Training and Research. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the comment section. I will bring them up during the presentation and we'll also have time for question at the end. So PP Manti sir actually asked me to give a hands-on with Maitland concept of manual therapy, and today sir will sharing with us his expert opinion on your Maitland concept, why will know Maitland concept and its practical implementation. So let's do the webinar. Hello sir.
Good morning, all of you. Thank you, Dr. Amit, for giving this opportunity to me to speak on manual therapy concept, on my Maitland concept of manual therapy. Manual therapy is the treatment by hand. Any physiotherapeutic intervention given by hand is manual therapy, starting from relaxed passive movement to soft tissue mobilization. Whatever you do by hand, that comes under manual therapy. There are various school of thought, there are various concepts, and these manual therapy concepts are all clinical, which is based on clinical evaluation of the patient. In physiotherapy, we are different from other healthcare professionals because of this physical evaluation skill. We take thorough history. The information which you can gather from the history that cannot be revealed by any other means, like physical examination or investigation. Similarly, the information we gather from the physical examination, those things that cannot be revealed from investigation. Nowadays, this medical treatment is usually based on investigation, and literature says, particularly in case of MRI or the spine and all, about more than 70% clinical problem, patient problem, it doesn't correlate with the investigation finding, radiological finding. And in clinical practice, we also observe many patients with low back pain, MRI shows gross, this bulge, for which patient undergoes surgery, and they report to us with the persistence of the problem or more complicated problems. That itself shows that whatever radiological finding is probably not correlated with the patient clinical finding. That is the reason physical important role, and if you physically examine the patient, correlate with the investigation finding, yes, the conclusion is definitely going to be more accurate. In all manual therapy concept, the core concept is almost same, that is history taking followed by physical examination, then interpreted and correlative data to come to a conclusion regarding the site, extent and the nature of the lesion. That is your physical diagnosis. Then based on the physical diagnosis, we plan out the treatment and we also execute the treatment by hand. Then we advise the patient what to be done, what not to be done. That do's and don'ts are very important in physiotherapy. Sorry. Now I'll share with the slideshow. Then we go for hands-on demonstration of the various spine, particularly on the spine. I'll show you the manual therapy on Maitland concept. So, Maitland concept of manual therapy for the spine. The concept is based on the constant clinical presentation. In any manual therapy, we have just now I told these are clinical based. So, based on the physical examination and history technique, we come to a conclusion. So, the core concept is a positive personal commitment. The therapist should have personal commitment. Without commitment, other manual therapy, yes, it okay, but in Maitland concept, one should have lot of patience, particularly to listen to the patient problem. If you are in a worry, if you are in a hurry, again, you cannot apply Maitland concept particularly. So, the core concept is a positive personal commitment to understand what the person is enduring within the concept, this entails find out the patient problem. So communication play a very important role, history taking play a very important role. Yeah. Based on the history, we formulate a hypothesis regarding, listen to the patient with open mind and believe the patient. So you should have a flexible mind to listen to the patient. You should not have a preoccupied, idea that yes, this person like that, and believe to the patient. Usually, I have experience with some people. As long as the patient says yes, I'm improving, then you believe the patient. The patient says no, my pain is same or my pain is worsened as compared to the other day, then we start shouting at the patient. So that is not a positive attitude. So we should believe the patient, whether positive or negative, you have to believe to the patient. Because this manual therapy concept, these are all going on inside. These are all hypothetical, but it's very useful, particularly while dealing with mechanical musculoskeletal problems. So, patient feedback is very, very important. You have patient feedback guide us to formulate our hypothesis regarding the structure involved. Patient feedback guide us to continue with the treatment or the modify the treatment. So if the patient is not cooperative, If the patient doesn't understand you, then this manual therapy is going to be a failure. So you have to listen to the patient with open mind and believe the patient. That is very, very important in Maitland concept, in any manual therapy concept. There are various terms used in Maitland concept. Number one is the mobilization. What is mobilization? Maitland defines mobilization as a passive movement performed with a rhythm and grade, so that the patient is able to prevent the technique from being performed. So mobilization is a passive movement which is given to the patient by the physiotherapist, which can be stopped by the patient. And the patient will, he can resist you performing the movement. There are two types of mobilization. One is the passive movement performed for the purpose of relieving pain and restoring full range of motion. Pain-free functional movement. There are two kinds again. One is your passive oscillatory movement, other is sustained stretching. The second type of passive movement, passive movement is performed for the purpose of maintaining a functional range of movement in patients who are unconscious or who have an active joint disease such as rheumatoid arthritis. So second one is, otherwise you say it is a relaxed passive movement. The person who cannot perform the movement or who doesn't perform the movement, in that case we give the relaxed passive movement in order to maintain the joint range of motion, in order to prevent adaptive shortening, remember us the pattern of the movement, etc. Whereas the other one is your maybe forced passive movement or slow and sustained passive stretching, which is given. Slow and sustained passive stretching is given to lengthen a tie structure, whereas forced passive movement, sudden but controlled forced passive movement, is given to mobilize the joint and increase the joint range of motion in case of joint stiffness. Then manipulation, it is a technique performed at a speed so that it has taken place before the person on whom it is performed is able to prevent it. Mobilization, we have discussed, patient can prevent therapist doing the movement. Patient, there may be reflex spasm or there may be voluntarily patient contract the muscle and resist you performing the passive force passive movement. But in manipulation, what happens? It is a high velocity, small amplitude jerk given at the end range. You position the patient properly, position the joint at the end range, then small amplitude but high velocity oscillatory movement followed by a sudden jerk is given. The speed of the movement is so fast. Before patient come to know about this thing, the execution is over. So patient doesn't find time, patient doesn't get the opportunity to prevent the therapist from doing this manipulation. This is the difference between mobilization and manipulation. Maitland concept, it is a clinical concept based on constant clinical presentation. So the central theme, I repeat, find out the patient problem, listen with open mind, believe the patient, personal commitment to understand the patient. So communication play a very important role here. Now coming to the brick wall analogy, this is a bi-compartmental theory. In one compartment, physiotherapist should have the anatomical knowledge of theoretical knowledge of
अंशुमान, अंशुमान, अंशुमान,
भाई भाई ना उतना कुछ ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा भाई। मेरी तरफ से थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, उधर से प्रॉब्लम है। डेढ़ से हो रहा है गांव से। दिखा एक मिनट, यूट्यूब में भी आ रहा है, यूट्यूब में भी आ रहा है।
Then broadly we can sort of two markets and relatively less movement is limited.
यूट्यूब खुला हुआ है।
Then next step is looking for that outside the front. That activity but the locality doesn't give you the only for this type of study, treatment, regular treatment, that's all. That's what makes, somatic treatment. The problem is somatic. And the pain experience of that. The problem we not make it. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Another one is very important in India, living very different and supposed to not, but not irritated, but not issue of the not complex, therefore, injury one to get up, one to be one can get up and be in that today, and really get the injury. No. Because good.
It will be insidious onset. The problem is insidious onset. In that case, acute onset, sudden onset is traumatic where the load exceeds of the front. In insidious onset, and insidious onset is usually overuse, due to overuse. Overuse. Is that load over time exceed the tissue endurance. The accumulated stress over time exceed the tissue endurance. So whatever, probably The rate of tissue death is at a faster rate than the rate of tissue repair, or the rate of tissue repair is a slower rate than the rate of tissue death, or maybe both. So, but the difference between the two is very minimal, micro. That is the reason it doesn't give rise to problem. But that accumulates over time. What happens there after chronic over time? Over time means that give that occur, when various incidents where it occurs when somebody performed the normal level with the normal level of activity. Have been doing same job as other decks. Probably environmental factors. Suppose somebody is active with the medial arson. All the days he has been using his medial longitudinal arc supported, passively supported. Suppose you chance cut foot, but there is no arc. So when standing for by the body weight, the medial longitudinal arc should not. The plantar capsule ligament is computed as place. Then what happens? As you stand to get the blood, then there occur contraction of the muscles responsible for the left. And over time, what happens? Those muscles become contracting because all these days those muscles were not being used. Now, activity you get the pain. The tissue is normal and it is subjected to normal level of stress because of the change in the environment. Then normal tissue subjected to abnormal load. The second combination is normal tissue subjected to abnormal load. Suppose I have been working in a kilotherapy unit, but applying the various modalities. I change to a manual therapy where I have to use my hands, mobilization, and I get the hand pain, this pain. Because that is a non-active. Then the third one is tissue subjected. Tissue is abnormal. Somebody has injury, surgery for after immobilization. 6 weeks, then one after is removed, but return back to immobilization. Strength is reduced. Stabilization. If extension is reduced. When I read occupation of the individual, whether there is any change in occupation, change in the environmental factor.
Yes, sir.
Change in environmental factor, etc. In sports, the batsman changes his bats, the racket, he's going to develop the shoulder pain or the elbow pain or the hand pain. So the mind of those incidents on. Then the history is common to both of cases, pain, whether you have any other problem, like tingling, numbness, weakness, gallbladder problem, instability, blocking, buckling, etc. Then obviously the treatment history, what treatment you have taken, for the present problem. And in treatment history, what is important for us is prolonged steroid therapy or prolonged anticoagulant therapy. Because in manual therapy, when somebody undergo prolonged steroid therapy, the tissue become devitalized, like injury early. And if there occur injury and bleeding in case of anticoagulant therapy, that bleeding will be non-stop. So it should be very cautious. Then past medical history, what are the other problem patient is having, like hypertension, diabetes, and cardiac problem, respiratory problem, those things. The first bout in detail, the cause, the duration, and the treatment. Successive bout, like the frequency, age of the cause, and the recovery rate. The past similar problem patient have. Then the past medical history, socio-economic history. Then coming to the next, the subjective evaluation is continued. In the subjective evaluation, you have to find out whether the present problem is related to pain. Is it a painful condition or is it a stiffness? Or it may be combination of the both, pain and stiffness. Pain is more than stiffness, stiffness is more than pain. Giving way or instability, the joint buckles. There is weakness, there is loss of function, or post-traumatic surgery, manipulation or anesthesia, hospitalized or transfer. If it is a traumatic condition, recent trauma, recent orthopedic surgery, where open reduction, internal fixation is done, recent manipulation or anesthesia, hospitalized, patient was hospitalized and traction, that is very important because probably these are the complications. These are the contraindication to your manual therapy. Recent trauma is a contraindication. Recent orthopedic open reduction, internal fixation is a contraindication for your manual. And if it is a painful condition, as we have discussed, sudden onset, gradual onset, site of the symptom, the area, exactly let the patient show in the body chart. You mark it, the depth, nature of the pain, whether the pain is continuous in nature or intermittent, constant or continuous pain is, as per the McKenzie, it is a chemical pain associated with some inflammation. And if it is a chemical pain or inflammatory pain, obviously the treatment is the drug therapy. And intermittent pain is mechanical in nature. In manual therapy, we deal with the mechanical problem. What is the mechanical problem? McKenzie described this mechanical problem better, very good way. Mechanical pain are intermittent in nature, which is produced on mechanical deformation of the structure. Mechanical deformation occurs when the tissue is loaded. You take the load on the x-axis, deformation, elongation on the y-axis. You will find elongation is directly proportional to the load. So when the tissue is loaded to that extent, that produces the pain. That is what happens in case of mechanical problem. Some movement, some posture, some activities reproduce the symptom, whereas the other posture or the movement doesn't reproduce the symptom or aggravate the symptom. Pain at rest is again acute inflammatory origin, and pain with activities is suggestive of mechanical problem. Behavior of the pain with various activities, position, and diagonal variation. They said that this pain, the pain is more in sitting position, because in sitting, the disc pressure is low, and it is relieved in standing. Whereas it is said that in standing, the pain is more, it's suggestive of facet joint arthritis, facet joint origin, and it relieved with sitting, that is inflection. But this statement is not always true, because this pressure is not the only factor that gives rise to pain in case of discogenic lesion. In clinical practice, we find patients with disc lesion like PIBD, they get more pain in standing. Though the disc pressure is as compared to pressure. But some other factor, like in standing, what happens? Various muscle come in control. Some other muscles also contract like your piriformis. Your piriformis is sitting. So in case bulk of the piriformis compresses the static nerve. So that is the reason that actually we find patient is dystogenic or PID. The pain is more in standing rather than sitting. Though theoretically it is said that pain more in sitting is characteristic of this pain and facet pain is more in standing relief in sitting. Then morning pain and stiffness is characteristic feature of degenerative joint disease because when there is degeneration, there is chronic inflammation, chronic inflammation is and accumulated synovial fluid overnight glue the structure. There occur transient adhesion. In the morning, as you get up, you feel the stiffness, you feel the pain. And as you move the part, the accumulated synovial fluid overnight get dispersed, transient adhesion. And again, following activities due to fatigue at the end of the day, the pain return back with increased intensity. Pain experience at the end of the day is due to fatigue, overuse syndrome, or you say the postural syndrome. Night pain is suggestive of acute inflammatory origin. Daytime there is pain, there is spasm, there is muscle guarding, restricting us during the movement. So no pain, no movement, no pain. But in the night, what happens? As you sleep, the muscle spasm subside, and in the night, as you turn unknowingly, the inflamed structure is compressed, inflamed structure is stretched, and you get the pain. One wakes up in the night with pain. And that is what known as the night pain. That to be acute inflammatory. Night pain in elderly person with a history of weight loss could be carcinogenic. So that is what further investigation. Then factor aggravating and factor relieving the symptom like the movements, like coughing, sneezing, aggravate the pain, which is dural compression. Forward bending, aggravate the pain. It could be due to increase disc bulge. As you bend forward, the disc bulge posteriorly and bulge more, and the pain bulge more. And the factor relating the symptom, each factor to find out in which position, lying and sitting and standing, which angle of the pen and moving with the pen. And again, following activities due to fatigue at the end of the day, the pen. Now come to the physical examination. After taking the history, then we come to the physical examination. First one is observation. As the patient come to you, find out how he comes, whether he comes independent walking or with support. What is his general posture, general body build. The functional test include how he sits, how he remove his shoes, the trouser, the shirt, how he lie down in the bed. So, those functional activities whichever, it doesn't require a special sensor. As the patient comes, as the patient talk to you while taking the history, as the patient lie down for further physical examination. So whatever you notice, that comes under the functional. Next is active physiological. To do the active physiological movement for the spine. Practical, I'll show you afterwards. Then active physiological movement. During this movement, this movement evaluation is very, very, very important in physiotherapy. That help us to come to the diagnosis. That is, in Syria says this is selective tissue tension test. This movement evaluation, active movement, passive movement, and register isometry. In Syria's concept, these three movements are evaluated. That's why it is selective tissue tension test. In all manual therapy concepts, the movement evaluation is the most important. So in Magellan, what happens? What do? You ask the patient to do the active physiological movement, and during this movement evaluation, we try to find out which movement reproduce the original symptom. You have to explain the patient. See, while doing the movement, you tell me which movement reproduce your original symptom. आपका जहां पे पेन हो रहा था वो पेन जब रिप्रोड्यूस होगा तब बता और इफ द पेशेंट इज हैविंग कंटिन्यूअस पेन so what you have to look for already at rest also pain is there so which movement aggravate the symptom so you have to find out that. So in all direction like flexion extension side flexion rotation in all direction at the patient to do the movement and see whether the original symptom reproduces or not. During this movement evaluation, what is important is simply in lumbar spine, lumbar flexor, we don't look for whether he can touch the floor or not. You see the characteristic of the movement. You should know the characteristic of normal characteristic of the movement. Movement occur cephalocodal. In standing, as you are, flexion of the head over the neck. Then cervical flexion, cervicothoracic flexion, thoracic flexion, thoracolumbar, then lumbar, then pelvic. Movement occur cephalocodal. Movement is bilateral symmetrical. And during this movement, what happened? Bilateral, during flexion, both the sides facet joint open up. The inferior articulating facet of the vertebra above glide bilateral symmetrically over the superior articulating facet of the vertebra. Movement bilateral. And with this movement, what happens? If you are checking for the lumbar spine, the lumbar, it is flattened, then it is reversed. That is, finally, in the lumbar region, there will be smooth convexity, backward convexity. In that much detail, you have to see. Simply don't look for whether one can touch the floor or not. Patient with complete ankylosis of the lumbar spine may able to touch the floor by compensatory hypermobility of the hip. Similarly, while doing the extension, you have to sit behind the patient and see. You have to see the creases, skin creases, bilateral symmetrical skin creases, the number of creases on both the sides, and the depth of the creases. Whether both the sides, the creases are bilaterally symmetrical or not. And with extension, what happens? Again, same thing, movement occurs cephalocodally, bilateral symmetrical, and at the end, uniform concavity. If suppose your active movements are all full in range and free from pain, it doesn't reproduce the original symptoms, then what do? We apply terminal overpressure to see whether the symptom is reproduced. Terminal overpressure also doesn't reproduce the symptom. It doesn't give any information. What information we are looking for? We are looking for the information, the movement which reproduce the original symptom or which aggravate the original symptom. Then you go for the combined movement. Flexion is combined with side flexion and rotation, and similarly extension is combined with side flexion. We are dealing with, I repeat, we are dealing with the mechanical problem. Mechanical problem is reproduced with mechanical deformation of the structure. And mechanical deformation occurs on tissue loading. So we are trying to find out which movement reproduces the original symptom. So during active movement full and free means probably the involved tissue is not loaded to that extent that reproduces the original symptom. With passive terminal overpressure also, the involved structure is probably not loaded to that extent that reproduces the original symptom. Then, but patient is having the symptom. You can't say that your movements are full and free, you don't have any problem. He is having the problem and you have to find out the problem. Nature of the problem, that is what we have to find out. So if it is not loading the tissue adequately, then what do? We go for the combined. Extension is combined with side flexion and rotation. Then probably the symptom is going to reproduce. If not, then we may apply compression. We check the movement under compression. That is the point. So in combined movement, what happens? In extension, what happens? Your facets are loaded. IV foramen size is decreased. If it is facet problem, if it is IV foramen reproduce or aggravate. If it is not reproduced, then what do you do? You go for the combined movement. That is, extension is combined with side flexion rotation. So that the side to which you are doing the side flexion, that facet is overloaded. That side IV foramen is reduced to the minimum. And if that is the side, obviously the pain should be reproduced. And then we go for the registered isolation. Only muscle tissue is recruited. So pain originating during reproduced during registered isometric contraction is suggestive of muscle problem, contractile tissue problem. Then the passive movement, you check the passive movement, passive physiological movement. You know, passive movement is given muscular inactivity. The muscle is inactive. So muscle tissue is excluded. Muscle during passive movement, muscle tissue is excluded. And while giving the relaxed passive movement, again we check the range, we check the pain response, the NP, both for physiological movement and accessory movement. And in the accessory, next is passive. Central peer pressure over the spinous process. Central peer pressure is translated into extension, localized extension. The vertebral body glide, posterior that is associated with that. Then you apply unilateral peer pressure over the articular pillar. So when you apply unilateral peer pressure, then that is translated into rotation. That is giving unilateral peer pressure, vertebral body rotate to the opposite side. Then the third one is transverse. Transverse is given by the side of the spinous process. By putting the thumb by the side of the spinous process, you push the spinous process from say left right or right to left. When you put the spinous process from say left to right, the vertebral body rotates towards the left side. It is translated into rotation. The next evaluation is passive physiological movement with segmental palpation. While giving passive physiological movement, to palpate at various segments to find out localized hypomobility and hypomobility. Then there are various special tests for various joints. There are various special tests. Next comes after movement evaluation, you palpate the skin for temperature, texture, tenderness, moisture, mobility. Palpate the soft tissue for swelling, any bursting, any tenderness, continuity, consistency. You palpate the bone for their relationship with each other. Particularly as you palpate along the spinous process, you may get a step sign, is suggestive of listhesis. In case of scoliosis, you may find there is a deviation of the spinous process. Then, while palpating the bone, relationship from reference point. That is, if some patient is in standing position, ground is taken as the reference. So we palpate to whether they are equidistant from the reference point or not. There is a variation, means there is some problem somewhere, like shortening, subluxation, fracture malunion, degenerative joint disease where the joint space is reduced like that. Next, finally, we are coming to the neurological evaluation, where brief neurological evaluation, that is sensation, muscle tone, muscle power by manual muscle testing, then reflexes, superficial reflex, deep tendon reflex, bowel bladder, and neural tissue. But in the lower limb, we check for the sciatic tension, the femoral tension, in upper limb, medial, radial, all. Finally, we can go for the X-ray. Next comes interpretation. You have completed the evaluation. Now coming to the interpretation and correlation. Initial assessment that relate your examination finding, interpretation and correlation of your examination finding. The finding which are positive that has to be interpreted correlate with the theoretical knowledge. Behavior of patient symptoms, whether the patient symptom is consistent, severe, whether it is intermittent like that, then the diagnosis, physical will come to that. The stage of the disorder, acute, subacute, chronic, stability of the disorder, the structure is. With minimum, touch, minimum movement, the pain is reproduced or aggravated, then we say it is highly irritable. Severity of the pain is more highly, severe pain patient. A visual analog scale maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. The behavior of the pain, one is your sin factors. Sin stand for, S stand for severity, I stand for irritability. Severity means, just now I told that it's pain, severity of the pain by visual analog scale or any other method we can measure. Irritable, with minimal touch or with minimal movement, change in posture, the structure is irritated and the pain is reproduced or aggravated, nature is very active. And so in sin group what happens, the patient feel the pain. Suppose you are giving movement, passive movement, patient feel the pain before you feel the movement barrier, motion barrier. And that pain will limit full range of motion. The pain will not allow you to complete the full range of motion. So that belongs to sin group. You should be very cautious while handling those cases. Then recovery of the pain. How long it takes for the pain to recover? Once suppose you have been a pressure, central peer pressure, and the pain is reproduced, how long it takes for the pain to recover? Release pain. Then latent pain. Then after pain, two or more pain. Either it's pain at two different sides, that has to be noted. Next, the patient having more stiffness. In that case, what happens? You will try to find out the resistance. Resistance to the motion may manifest as a loss of the friction when there is friction between the articulating surface due to degeneration, which is characterized by crepitus, which is produced during the movement. It may be active movement, it may be passive movement during which the crepitus is reproduced, increasing as the movement is carried out further into the range. Then you have to find out the resistance. Depending on the resistance, we say which is the limiting factor. If the resistance encountered at the end range while giving the movement is say hard, but that means whatever amount of over pressure you apply, joint doesn't feel it. So probably that is a bony contact, and so your mobilization, manipulation is contraindicated. You feel soft and feel softness, elastic and feel with little over pressure, the joint yields. So it could be a muscle problem. If there is a firm and feel, resistance is firm, with relatively more over pressure, joint yield to a little, then that is the characteristic feature of joint capsule. And in some cases, what happens? There is this well by cereals. There is a spring rebound and feel, that is, as you apply the over pressure, the joint yields completely to full range, and as you release your pressure, the joint recoil back like a spring. That That is the characteristic feature of internal and direct movement. This is how you have to plot the graph between the range on the x-axis, the CPM with the pen, visual analog scale, y-axis. Suppose somebody has got severe pain that doesn't allow you to complete the range that usually belong to the thin group. In some other what happened, patient felt pain at the end range only. Throughout the range there is no pain, patient felt pain at the end range. That is known as end range. In end range, the pain is due to stretching of the tight structure. In some cases what happens, patient feel pain throughout, but pain doesn't limit the range of motion. And the fourth group is patient feel momentary pain. If it is a momentary pain, we are not very sure about the pathology. If the symptom is inconsistent, it is, we are not very sure about the pathology. Then the five grouping, like the pain is the predominant factor. Pain limit the movement, and because of the pain there is spasm, so you may not able to feel the end pain. The other one is stiffness, but the movement is limited due to resistance. It is again up to type. You can divide. One is stiffness is more than pain, and the second one is pain is more than. And fourth one is the momentary pain. Momentary pain, I told if the pain is inconsistent, it will be very difficult to find out make the diagnosis, and the disorder is directly related to specific diagnosis. Right. There is a specific diagnosis. You give a specific diagnosis like prolapse intervertebral disc, spondylolisthesis, some say traumatic condition. It may be ankylosing spondylitis, like that. So specific diagnosis can be. Now coming to the hypothesis regarding the structure involved. Intra-articular pathology is characterized by limitation of the movement in capsular pattern. When the joint is having the problem, then what happens? Whether it is a trauma or whether it is an inflammatory condition, the joint is swollen. And to accumulate that swelling, joint assume the resting position, where the volume is maximum, the joint space is maximum, pressure is minimum. So joint capsule is distended in all directions. So as you do the movement, the already distended joint capsule further doesn't elongate, and it limits the movement in a particular pattern. For the knee joint, both flexion and extension are limited. Flexion is more limited than extension. Then over time what happens? As the inflammation subsides, there occur healing. So healing occurs by usually fibroblastic proliferation, accumulation of the collagen tissue over lead to limitation of the movement. Swelling subside and the joint range of motion is limited in a capsular pattern because fibrous thickening of the joint capsule. I repeat, in acute condition, because of the swelling joint diffusion, movement is limited in capsular pattern, but in that case the NPL muscle spasm. Whereas in subacute or chronic condition, swelling subside, movement is limited again in the same capsular pattern. Of course, the range of motion is relatively greater, but with firm NPL. Then extra-articular. Other one is extra. Extra-articular means if it is, say, muscle tightness. If there is a extra-articular muscle tightness, so that is characterized by elastic. The muscle tightness, that the movement is limited by soft tissue NPL or elastic NPL. Surface apposition, that is your crepitus, there will be crepitus. In case of degenerative joint disease, you get the crepitus during the movement. Then in case of neural, what happens? The pain is experienced along the course of the nerve. It may be extraneural. Outside the nerve, there is some compression. Like, in the intervertebral IV foramen, there could be a compression. along the course of the nerve. As the sciatic nerve passes underneath the piriformis, the spasm, hypertrophy of the piriformis may compress the sciatic nerve. So anywhere in the part, there is compression from outside. Prolapse intervertebral disc is compressing over. The other one is intraneural. When there occur intraneural, say edema, particularly, when patient is given intraneural block, there occur fibrosis. There is swelling. If there is no swelling, there will be venous and lymphatic stagnation. That impair the capillary circulation to the nerve fiber. In case of intraneural pathology. So over time, what happened? So to start with, say there was what is that? Stagnation, venous and lymphatic stagnation. There because of the swelling and all. Okay, and that increase pressure, compresses the capillary, so the capillary circulation is going to be blocked. So patient may develop actinotomosis like phenomenon. In that case, the prognosis is relatively poor. And entrapment, somewhere the nerve get entrapped, like maybe your carpal tunnel syndrome, your Van tunnel syndrome, etc. Then supportive element, as I told, along the course of the nerve somewhere, the supportive structure, that is extraneural pathology. Next, coming to the discogenic, in this pathology, what happens? It usually occurs in the middle age. Patient complain of pain, sudden onset of back pain or neck pain, which radiate down the upper limb or lower limb over a period of time. And by the time he complains of limb pain, there is no back pain or neck pain. As you examine the patient, you will find there is a deviation of the posture, because to compensate the pain, the neck or the trunk, in case of cervical spine, the neck; in case of lumbar spine, the trunk, deviate away from the pelvis, and usually the lordosis is oblique. One find a position where the discal pressure is the minimum, the compression over the nerve root is minimum. And if you try to correct that posture, that aggravates the pain, that reproduces the pain. And during extension, side flexion to the affected side, the IV foramen size is decreased. So the pain is reproduced or aggravated. And that is limb pain, not this back pain or the neck pain. This is the characteristic feature of your disc problem. Your neural tissue tension test is positive, and depending on the level of the compression, extent of the compression, neuromuscular deficit may be. Next is spondylolisthesis. In spondylolisthesis, the vertebral body along with the vertebral column above slip forward. That usually occur at L5-S1 junction and relatively less in L4-L5 junction. In that case, usually the lumbar lordosis is increased. Lumbar flexion may be limited, painful. Extension that shows segmental hypermobility at the listhetic site. That is the unstable site. That is the hypermobile site. On palpation, steps and may be positive. Next is the muscular. In muscular problem, just we have discussed, isometric contraction is going to be painful. Muscular may be primary or secondary. There may be muscle weakness. When there is muscle weakness, obviously there is imbalance, there is tightness or inhibition. Usually what happens? Your postural muscle, the tonic muscle, often become tight. For the phakic muscle, they become weaker. Like in the lumbar spine, abdominal weakness is very common. Tightness of the hip flexors and back extensors. Including thoracolumbar fascia, that is more common. Whereas in the cervical spine, tightness of suboccipital structure, the pectorals. These are the postural muscle that occurs, and weakness of neck flexor and your rhomboids. When a muscle becomes tight, the opposite group of muscle, its activity is inhibited, and over time that may become weak. With change in posture, with the change in the line of gravity, the muscle activity is also affected. Like in case of spondylolisthesis, what happens? Your line of gravity falls behind the lumbar spine. That creates a extension moment that pushes the vertebral body forward, posterior to anteriorly at the listhetic side, increasing the lordosis, increasing the listhesis. So, in our treatment, we should, plan in such a way that you have to bring the line of gravity to its original position or maybe in front of the spine. In head forward posture, line of gravity fall anterior to the neck. So gravity acts as a flexor. Gravity creates a flexion moment. So over time, neck flexor activity is reduced. It becomes undergo, disease atrophy, weakness. And to balance that flexion movement, neck extensor overact. Over time, they become adaptively short, suboccipital shortening occurs. Then clarifying the hypothesis. The patient disorder can be categorized into two groups. Those whose symptoms have developed gradually without any significant trauma that can be recalled. Patient problem develop gradually without any trauma. Or those whose symptoms have onset following a trauma, where a heavy fall, a motor vehicle accident, or any other kind of severe injury. So that we have already initially we have discussed whether it is a traumatic, non-traumatic. If it is a non-traumatic condition, usually we assume that it is due to overuse, postural or occupational. Then the treatment strategy based on the continual assessment, the treatment on metal and concept is given either by mobilization, manipulation, Butler neural tissue mobilization, traction, exercise, and patient education. Patient education is very important. In all concept, patient education, the impact, that is the first thing you should follow. You have diagnosed, you make the physical diagnosis, then you have to educate the patient. See, you are having this and that problem, for which you are supposed to avoid them this and that. The don't are more important. You give the patient treatment and patient perform the activities. Patient adopt the posture which is not supposed to. By doing that, what happens? So whatever alignment, functional alignment, structural alignment you have done, that may be going to be undone. The condition is going to again worsen. So you have to teach him some exercise to do at home. You have to teach him to avoid certain things. There are various grades, 5 grades. Grade 1, small amplitude movement given at the beginning. Grade 2, large amplitude movement given at the beginning. So grade 1 and grade 2 are given in painful condition. Grade 3 is large amplitude movement given at the entrance. Grade 4 is small amplitude movement given at the entrance. So grade 3 and 4 are given in case of stiffness to improve the joint mobility. And grade 5 is manipulation, which is given beyond the physiological motion barrier. It is a small amplitude movement given at the beyond the physiological motion barrier. This is how grade 1 is given at the beginning. Grade 2 is at the beginning, but doesn't touch the starting point. Grade 3 at the entrance. Grade 4 at the entrance, small amplitude movement. So grade 3 and grade 4 both are end range mobilization. So useful to improving joint range of motion. And grade 5 is manipulation given beyond the physiological. Next is the rhythm. Backlund mobilization manual therapy concept is based on rhythmic oscillatory mobilization. So the mobilization given at a rhythm. Oscillatory mobilization given at the rhythm. So there are certain things like one is sustained rhythm. Sustained means you apply a pressure and maintain it without oscillation. So in which case it is given if patient is having very severe pain, syndrome, who cannot withstand the rhythmic oscillatory mobilization. So small amplitude pressure is applied. As the discomfort subsides, maybe you have to increase the pressure little more. The sustained mobilization is given in case of joint stiffness. At end range, you apply over pressure. with little discomfort. So over time, what happened? Due to creep phenomenon, there occur with the load remaining constant, there occur further elongation. The joint range of motion is going to be increased to certain extent. Then again, you apply little more pressure and sustain with little discomfort. And again, over time, what happened? There is going to be further increase like that, sustain. Mobilization help in end range over pressure, help in increasing joint range of motion. Then smooth rhythm. In smooth rhythm, what happens? Mobilization is given at various frequency. One is slow. In slow, what happens? The mobilization is given at the rate of 1 per 2 seconds. That is 30 oscillation per minute. In medium, 1 oscillation per second. That is 60 oscillation per minute. In fast, 2 oscillation per second. That is 120 oscillation per minute. So when the condition is acute, we apply slow, smooth rhythmical mobilization, and when the problem is chronic, we apply fast. When the speed of oscillation is increased, mass into velocity is the moment. The rate of change of momentum is the force. So when you apply the rhythmic mobilization at a faster rate, that creates a end range over pressure, increasing joint range. So first, rhythmic oscillation, mobilization, help in breaking the adhesion, improving the joint range. The other one is broken rhythm. In broken, what happens? There are some patients who cannot tolerate rhythmic mobilization continuously for a certain period of time. So in that case, we break the treatment into various sessions. Suppose at a particular segment, you want to give mobilization usually for 2 minutes or so. Patient doesn't tolerate that for 2 minutes. So we give mobilization for smooth rhythmic mobilization for 30 seconds. Then we take a break, give rest to the patient, and again we continue for another 30 seconds and break like that. And the other one is the staccato rhythm, where what happens? The grade is variable, the rhythm is variable, the rate is also variable. Selection of a particular technique is based on the following factor, like the current knowledge of the pathological disorder or the injury, the diagnosis, the history, sign and symptom. Certain condition you can give a specific pathological diagnosis. In certain, no pathological diagnosis can be given. Then we go for the physical diagnosis in that case. That is, which structure is involved, at what site, and what is that problem. Whether there is hypermobility, whether there is hypermobility, whether there is tightness, whether there is weakness, whether there is instability. So based on that, the treatment is planned and given. So the current knowledge of the pathology, like the range, pain, response to movement, local or rapid pain, end range or throughout the range, and stretching or compression. Discuss local pain. The pain is localized. The condition is, very mild in nature, superficial structure. Rapid pain, the condition may be relatively more severe. End range. So end range, in case of joint stiffness, end range overpressure give rise to pain. And stretching pain, when the structure is stretched, the pain sensitive structure and their pain pattern, the intravertebral disc, I have already discussed. When the intravertebral disc is involved, to start with, so say the disc lesion, the nucleus pulposus bulge within the annulus fibrosus. In that case, what happens? Only one complaint of low back pain or neck pain. When it herniates furthermore, and it comes beyond the territory of the annulus fibrosus. Now it is, say, inside the IV foramen. It occupies the IV foramen and compresses the spinal nerve root. One gets radiated. And the other one is the bulge disc is separated from the parent nucleus pulposus. That is extruded. It lies inside the canal as an extruded free body. So in this problem, to start with, patient complain of back pain, he continue to perform the movement activities, then it worsen, it radiate down. By the time he complain of radiating pain in the upper limb or lower limb, he no more complain of usually the back pain. And the pain is reproduced or aggravate with extension and side flexion. And if it is zygoepiphyseal joint problem, facet joint problem, the movement is usually facet arthritis. In case of arthritis, there is swelling of the joint. The movement is limited in the capsular. In facet arthropathy, which is degenerative, the facet joint capsule is fibrous, thickened, limit the movement again in capsular. So when the facet joint is swollen, in that case what happens? One comes rapid pain. It has been found out, by injecting normal saline into the facet joint, it gives rise to rapid pain. Then facet joint arthritis also may give rise to radiating pain. When the joint is swollen, the facet joint form the posterior boundary of the IB foramen. It may encroach upon the IB foramen, compressing the spinal nerve root, so it may give rise to radiating pain also. And in either case, whether it is arthritis or arthropathy, movement is limited in the capsular pattern, and the capsular pattern of the spine is bilateral capsular pattern include extension is more limited than the flexion, and side flexion, both the sides are also limited. And if it is a unilateral capsular pattern, one side is more involved or one side is involved than the other side, in that case what happens? The movement is asymmetrical. Movement is asymmetrical. Flexion and extension are asymmetrical. The are the skin crease, and other side there is a deep skin crease. And side flexion to the opposite side is going to be limited. And if it is, the bone, it's a bone pathology, bone or periostal pathology, in that case, usually the pain is localized pain. In case of accessory ligament problem, the stress test is going to be positive. Joint plane is going to be reproducing the symptom. Capsular pattern, this problem I have already elaborated, and certain disease, specific disease. Then you have to find out, if you want to mobilize, what should be the direction of mobilization? Whether it is by central pay pressure, unilateral pay pressure, lateral pay pressure. Then, depending on the technique to select direction of the movement, suitable starting position has to be given. Then the grades, like I have already mentioned, grade 1, grade 2 is used for pain, grade 3, grade 4 for range of motion. What should the speed, whether you want to mobilize with slow, medium or fast speed, the rhythm like sustain or smooth rhythm or broken rhythm or staccato rhythm, the duration of the technique at a particular segment, how long to apply. Usually we apply for 2 minutes or till the pain get reduced at that particular segment. Then duration of the total duration of the treatment session. Passive mobilization technique, whether you have to mobilize the you have to treat the patient by physiological movement like flexion, extension, side flexion or rotation, or you want to treat the patient by like central pay pressure, unilateral pay pressure, lateral pay pressure. Usually when the pain is bilateral symmetrical, bilateral pain, the patient is managed by unilateral pay pressure on the affected side or transverse pressure from the opposite side. Then maybe traction or compression. Usually compression is used for diagnostic purpose, not for therapeutic. I have already mentioned. Suppose during evaluation, we look for the movement which reproduce the original symptom. If the symptom is not reproduced with active movement, then we apply pressure. In spite of that, if the pain is not reproduced, we go for the combined movement. If still it is not reproduced, we check the movement under compression. So compression is used for diagnostic. rather than the therapeutic purpose, whereas distraction is used for therapeutic purpose as well as diagnostic purpose. The depth of mobilization is determined by the pain, resistance, and the spasm. In case of cervical spine, unilateral symptom is managed by unilateral peer pressure, then traction. Bilateral symptom is managed by central peer pressure or maybe the longitudinal peer pressure. Application of the technique, if a rapid improvement is expected, if your with your knowledge, experience, you know this condition is going to improve rapidly, then you can change that to another technique rapidly. But usually, you continue to treat the patient with a particular technique as long as it benefits the patient. Once that particular technique no more benefits the patient, then you have to change the technique. Suppose I am managing a patient with grade 1 central peer pressure, I'll continue to apply that central peer pressure as long as it benefits. The day patient says, if no more benefit, then central peer pressure with grade 2 like that. Then in thoracic spine, unilateral symptom, central peer pressure, bilateral symptom usually you can manage by rotation and symptom is usually managed by the central peer pressure. So the longitudinal movement. The cervical lordosis increase and traction in cervical spine. The traction is given in the neutral position with the condition involved the upper cervical spine. Traction is applied in flexion if it is involved the lower cervical spine. Intermittent traction is given when there is gross radiological changes, degenerative changes. Lumbar spine, same principle is same, central peer pressure is applied, bilateral symptom, unilateral symptom. Unilateral P is applied on the affected side. Transverse is applied from the sound side. Rotation, unilateral distributed symptom, the pelvis, affected side pelvis remain up and forward. For longitudinal, bilateral distributed symptom, both the legs you just hold above the, like in painful condition, people say, pain, there is spasm, there is analgesic, there is muscle relaxation. The pain subsides, the muscle is relaxed. So one continue to do the activities. In spite of the pathology remaining, we are not treating the pathology, we are treating the symptom. With the pathology remaining, if the patient continue to do the activities, what will happen? This pathology may worsen because he performed the activities which may further damage the tissue. In the absence of the pain, the condition worsens. So what I want to say, you have to treat the pathology, not the spasm, not the pain. As you treat the pathology, the pain is going to subside, the pathology is going to subside, and neural mobility is also going to improve. There are certain contraindications like inflammatory arthritis, malignancy, tuberculosis, osteoporosis, ligamental rupture, where there is instability, you have to do stabilization exercise, herniated disc lesion, compressing the, Maitland says mobilization is absolutely contraindicated. Any bone disease like osteoporosis, neurological involvement, sudden onset of neurological deficit or rapidly progressing neurological deficit, vertigo, your bone fracture, congenital bone deformity, vascular disorder, joint effusion. In the presence of swelling, mobilization is contraindicated. However, Maitland says in all conditions, grade 1, grade 2 mobilization can be tried to relieve the pain. Then precaution in case of osteoarthritis, pregnancy, flu, total hip replacement, severe scoliosis, poor general health, patient inability to relax. So patient has to relax. That is very important. If the patient doesn't relax, you are giving mobilization and there is muscle spasm. That means two oppositely directed force work in that. Your force work against the muscle spasm. That is not going, no way is going to benefit the patient. Rather, patient condition may worse. So, I just how to examine the lumbar spine set. So, as usual, you make the patient stand with normal base of support. Always see that the base of support remains constant. With the change in base of support, the posture is going to be changed. The range of motion is going to change. So, what we do, we keep our foot in between each foot so that the base of support remains constant. If one stand with third base of support, then we find the range of motion, side flexion particularly. The side flexion range is going to be different. So always keep the base of support constant. Then as usual, in any evaluation you check from the front, position the head, shoulder level, arm trunk distance. Then normally patella faces forward, foot out. From the back, head midline, shoulder level, trunk crease, symmetrical crease or not, right? Then gluteal fold, popliteal fold, the heel should be vertical, heel cord is vertical, right? From the side view, position of the head, neck, cervical lordosis, thoracic hyposis, lumbar lordosis. PSIS, ASIS is normally level, hip neutral, knee neutral, normal position, and the foot angle should be 90 degrees. That is a normal thing. So after checking these things, you have to check obviously the skin, whether there is any trophic changes, the muscle, whether there is any atrophy, any spasm. Then you check the movement evaluation. Can you bend forward? Bend forward. Aram se bend forward. So here what happens? You have to look at in the lumbar spine. Bend, 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 bend. So movement occur cephalocaudary. Movement occur bilateral symmetrically. With the movement, the lordosis should reduce, it flatten, right? And it should be convex. Posteriorly, it should be uniform convexity. That indicates you is having good range of movement. Sometimes what happens? Sometimes patient bend forward and the body sway to the right side. If we sway to the right side, that indicates that what happens? There is a asymmetrical movement because probably the right side is hypomobile. There is a spasm or there is a facet arthropathy on the right side or there is a locking at the right side. That is the reason the right side is not moving, left side is moving more.
Then for extension, ask the subject to keep the hand in the pelvis, in the buttock, and therapy should be behind. Can you bend back, bend back, bend back, and you look from behind at various segment level where the movement occurs. In this way, in the upper lumbar there is no movement. So you have to look for the skin crease, whether bilateral symmetrical or not, right? Though he has got a bilateral symmetrical, but that is more present at the L4, L5 junction, not in the lumbar, upper lumbar. So keenly you have to look for. During extension, it should occur in the lumbar spine, not the knee should remain straight. Then you check the side flexion. For side flexion, ask the subject to slide the hand on the lateral aspect of the thigh. Then you just move. Usually patient bend forward and do the side flexion, but to ensure correct movement, ask the subject to slide the hand on the lateral aspect of the thigh to check the skin creases on the ipsilateral side. How many skin creases? He has got one over here, one over here. What is the depth? What is the number? Right? And finger to floor distance. Then compare it with the other side and pain response also. And in the other side also, he has got almost similar to and similar, in depth skin creases. So you can say bilateral symmetry. If your active movement doesn't reproduce the symptom, then what do? You apply overpressure, passive overpressure. Then coming to the combined movement, can you bend back? Then bend to the right side, then rotate to the right side. So this is extension is combined with side flexion and rotation to the right side. So that what happens? The right facet is compressed to a greater extent. Right side IP foramen is tenuous to the maximum limit. Then with the pain equals in that case. Next is passive physiological movement. For passive physiological movement, sit has. For passive lumbar flexion, subject in supine, flex the hip and knee, keep one hand over the pelvis, other on the front of the bent knee, and give the movement. Therapist bend his trunk sideways. You need not have to lift. You bend your trunk sideways, automatically by your body weight, the movement is going to occur. For side flexion, keep your hand under his bent knee, other hand on the front of the thigh. You turn your trunk. As you turn your trunk by the body weight, there will occur lumbar side flexion. No need to lift. And for the rotation, pick the thorax on the opposite side, turn both the bent knees. Petit. For extension, support the thigh by both the hands. Keep your hand on the lumbar spine. Right, dilla. Then you bend your trunk. Rapid bend the trunk. Automatically, movement is going to be produced. Then next is passive joint play. So for passive joint play, the dimple, the posterior superior iliac spine corresponds to S2. Highest point of the iliac crest corresponds to L4. That is the surface marking. So what do? You palpate the L5 spinous process. Place your PC palm with the forehand in mid-prone position, reinforced by the other hand. The forehand should not be pronated. If it is pronated, you are overlapping a number of spinous processes. It should be in mid-prone, reinforced by the other hand. Elbow straight, lean forward to transfer the body weight, so that you are pushing the vertebral body posture to anteriorly. You feel how much it glides, the amplitude of the movement, what type of resistance you feel, whether it is soft, it is firm, it is hard, and the pain response, whether the original symptom is reproduced or not. like that at different level. Then L4. Next, coming to unilateral peer pressure, you palpate the spinous process, go about half inch lateral to it. Place same heel of the hand, reinforced by the other hand, and push it. By using the body weight, you push it. Therapist should stand at the exact same level and the appropriate level. So as I push the articular pillar on the right side, then the vertebral body rotates toward the left side. Again, you see the amplitude of the glide, the resistance and the pain response at different level. Again, L4. The third one is your transverse pressure. For transverse pressure, you position the thumb by the side of the spinous process. Both the thumbs, your forearm should be horizontal. Your forearm should be horizontal. And you push the spinous process from, say, right to left. As I push the spinous process from right to left, vertebral body rotates toward the right side. Again, you see, find out, you feel the amplitude of the glide, the resistance and the pain response at different level. Finger relax, forearm horizontal, so that your pressure will be accurate, appropriate. Correct. Next is passive physiological movement with segmental palpation. So what I'll do, I'll place my index finger between L5S1, between the spinous process L5S1. So hip knee flex. So under the bent knee, my thigh is supported by my thigh. So by using my body weight, I apply the flexion, flex the hip and knee and apply the flexion. With the flexion, here you palpate how much the intraspinous space is increasing. Then shift the hand between L4, L5, move it further and see the gap, how much it is opening. To find out the segmental hypomobility and hypermobility, this is helpful. For extension, therapist stands in front of the bent knee, place the finger again in between the spinous process, use the body weight to extend the spine. So you apply extension. At different level. Next is for rotation. Place both the thumb by the side of the adjacent spinous processes. So suppose this thumb is at the level of L4. The other thumb is by the side of the L5. So I'm fixing the thorax by bent elbow placed in front of the shoulder. By the other bent elbow, the pelvic is, I'm rotating the pelvis. I repeat, the L4 is fixed by the thumb and the thorax is fixed by my shoulder. Whereas this mobilization, movement between this processes. Similarly, at different level. Now, L3 is fixed with the fixation of the thorax. Now, as I am rotating the pelvis forward, the intersegmental mobility can be palpated. Sorry. Next comes your side flexion. For side flexion, my thumb and index finger lies on both the side of the interspinous space. Thumb on the, say, right side, index finger on the left side. My hand is below the ischial tuberosity. There occurs side flexion. So with side flexion, I can feel there is closing on the upper side, that is the right side, and opening on the lower side, that is the left side. At different level you can calculate. Sit down. With this. Then you check the longitudinal, unilateral longitudinal in subject supine, hold above the ankle joint, lean back, and see the pen response, whether if the pen is present, whether it is relaxed or not. Then for bilateral longitudinal, hold both the legs, above the ankle and pull it back. You can take the help of some assistant that fix the thorax. Then mobility, subject in supine, then you raise the leg, keep on asking. Now say a patient feel the pain on the back of the thigh. The pain could be due to, it could be due to static tension or could be due to, I'll lower the leg. Now the hamstring is relaxed. So pain is relieved, hamstring is relaxed. Then what internal rotation? Pain is reproduced. That is, that confirms that there is a sciatic tension, not the hamstring. Raise the leg. He has got pain on the back of the thigh. I repeat, there could be hamstring tightness or sciatic tension. So you lower it. Now there is no more hamstring tightness, hamstring relaxed. You add adduction, internal rotation. Pain is not reproduced. Then I'll go for the dorsiflexion. So when you go for the dorsiflexion, then what will happen? The posterior tibial. You go for the plantar flexion, the anterior tibial, that passes in front and supply the pretibial, that is going to be. Then you add plantar flexion inversion, that is your lateral peroneal nerve or the musculocutaneous, which is otherwise known as, that is going to elongate. If not, then in this position, say you want to check posterior tibial branch of the sciatic nerve, you can ask the patient to bend the neck. And if it is no, again, maybe the sciatic tension is absent. The other alternative, in that case, you check the slump test. Relax. So in the relaxed position, hand behind, head flex, ask the subject to extend the knee. Extend the knee. Is followed by dorsiflexion of the ankle. Pain may be produced with extension of the knee. If not, pain may be produced with dorsiflexion of the knee. If it is produced and it disappears with the neck extension, it releases with the neck extension, then the sciatic tension, you confirm that the slump test is positive. Next comes your femoral nerve tension. In that, for femoral nerves, you go for the prone knee bending test. With knee bending, say patient complain of pain on the front of the thigh. It could be due to rectus femoris tightness or femoral nerve. So in that case, what you have to differentiate. What you can do, this is a modification, to apply MET. Can you just extend your knee? Apply MET. Relax to the knee extensors with MET. Suppose the discomfort on the front of the thigh disappears, probably it could be due to rectus tightness. If it is increased, that is due to femoral nerve tension. With knee bending, some people complain of pain on the posterior suprailiac spine. That could be due to sacroiliac joint problem. Similarly, with straight leg raising, if one complain of pain due to posterior tilt of the pelvis by the passive insufficiency of hamstring, that is again your SI joint pathology. And with knee bending, the lumbar lordosis increase is suggestive of lumbar pathology. Okay. So with this, I think we should signal the time is up. So I should conclude the session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving a brief idea about Maitland concept of manual therapy. I know there is some technical problem, and a participant is called me and messaged me about that. I think we'll clear about the Maitland concept, and thankful to the audience for giving support us and doing such thing. Thankful, sir, and thankful to the Fitzio group, Dr. Shwetang Pathak, the founder, and Dr. Anuj Gupta, the co-founder. And there is many question due to lack of time. I will mail that to the sir for further more information. And the physios are more hungry to learn Maitland concept, sir. I think this is very good thing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Amit. And you send the question. If there is any query, you just mail me. I'll try to my best to reply the query. And since it was the first time organized by your team, obviously there is some technical problem, and I hope in future that should be taken care. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, the Amit and his team.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.